The anomaly appeared on Dr. Sarah Chen's quantum scanner at 3:47 a.m. Earth Standard Time. She'd been pulling another late night at the Quantum Monitoring Station in Antarctica, searching for signs of dark matter, when her equipment detected something impossible, a tear in space-time that shouldn't exist. Sarah's fingers flew across the holographic interface, triple-checking the readings. The quantum fluctuation pattern was like nothing recorded in human history, a deliberate manipulation of subatomic particles that formed a coherent signal. Someone or something was trying to communicate through quantum entanglement. Director Hayes, she called over the secure channel, her voice steady despite her racing heart. You need to see this. Within minutes, James Hayes arrived at her station, his weathered face illuminated by the blue glow of the quantum displays. He'd been director of the QMS for 15 years, and Sarah had never seen him look genuinely shocked until now. It's not random noise, Sarah explained, highlighting the pattern. These quantum signatures are ordered, structured. This isn't a natural phenomenon. Hayes leaned closer, his expression grave. How long has this been active? That's the thing. Sarah pulled up the temporal data. According to these readings, this quantum network has been here for at least a century. We're just now able to detect it. The implications hit them both simultaneously. Someone had been watching Earth, studying humanity through a sophisticated quantum surveillance network that predated human quantum technology by decades. The next 48 hours transformed the quiet research station into the epicenter of global attention. Military officials arrived from every major world power. Scientists from competing institutions worked together, analyzing the quantum network that threaded invisibly through their solar system. Sarah found herself at the heart of it all, working to decode the quantum signals. Each discovery painted a more disturbing picture. The network wasn't just observing. It was analyzing, categorizing, and rating human responses to subtle manipulations of their environment. They've been running experiments on us, she explained to the assembled world leaders via secure holographic conference. Wars, diseases, technological breakthroughs. They've been watching how we react, how we adapt, how we fight. To what end? The Chinese premier's hologram asked, her face betraying rare concern. Before Sarah could respond, every quantum scanner in the station lit up like a supernova. The tear in spacetime was widening, and something was coming through. The first ship appeared in high Earth orbit, massive and organic-looking, like a giant deep-sea creature crafted from living metal. It made no attempt at communication. Instead, it began releasing smaller vessels that descended into Earth's atmosphere. They're targeting our quantum research facilities, Hayes realized, watching the tactical displays. They're trying to blind us. But humanity had learned from its observers. Sarah and her team had spent the last 2 days preparing for this possibility. As the alien ships approached, they activated the quantum disruption field, a hastily assembled defense system based on their analysis of the quantum network. The effect was immediate and devastating. The alien vessels, so dependent on their quantum technology, began falling from the sky. Their organic hulls, designed to adapt to conventional weapons, had no defense against their own technology, turned against them. The first vessel crashed less than 2 kilometers from the station. Sarah joined the recovery team, her heart pounding as they approached the wreckage. The ship's hull was rippling, trying to repair itself, but the quantum disruption field kept it in a state of constant flux. They found the pilot still alive, a creature that defied conventional biology. Its body seemed to be in a constant state of evolution, cells dividing and adapting even as they watched. When it spoke, its words were translated through the quantum field itself. "You weren't supposed to discover us so soon," it said, its form still shifting. "You weren't supposed to be able to fight back. You were meant to be weapons, not warriors." "What do you mean, weapons?" Sarah asked, even as medical teams rushed to contain the rapidly mutating alien. "Your species, your adaptability, your capacity for violence and innovation. You were to be our perfect soldiers, conditioned through centuries of subtle manipulation. But you've evolved beyond our control. You've become something we never intended. The creature's body began to break down, its endless evolution spiraling out of control without the stabilizing influence of its quantum network. In its final moments, it transmitted a signal that their instruments managed to intercept and decode. It was a warning to its people. Humanity has broken containment. The experiment has failed. They are no longer suitable for harvesting. They have become something worse. They have become free. Sarah watched the alien dissolve into a puddle of rapidly evolving and dying cells, her mind racing with the implications. Humanity had just discovered they weren't alone in the universe, but more importantly, they had discovered they were meant to be slaves and had instead become something their would-be masters feared. As emergency broadcasts lit up worldwide and military forces mobilized, Sarah realized this was just the beginning. Humanity had drawn first blood in a war they didn't start, against an enemy that had spent centuries preparing to harvest them. But if these aliens had been watching for so long, they should have learned the most important lesson about humans. They fought hardest when backed into a corner. The quantum network, meant to be humanity's cage, had become their first weapon in a war for survival. And Sarah Chen, who had spent her life studying the building blocks of reality, now found herself helping to forge those blocks into humanity's shield and sword. 3 months after first contact, the world had transformed. Cities now bristled with quantum detection arrays, their skylines altered by the silvery towers that monitored for tears in spacetime. Military bases housed crashed alien vessels, their organic technology still trying to adapt even in death. But the most significant changes weren't visible to the naked eye. They were in how humanity had begun to think and act as one. Colonel Maya Patel stood in the newly constructed Unified Defense Command Center beneath the Himalayas, watching holographic displays track quantum disturbances across the globe. She'd been appointed head of the military response team after her unit successfully captured an intact Nexus scout ship during the first wave. The quantum signature analysis is complete. Dr. Chen's hologram appeared beside her, the physicist now operating from a mobile research facility in the Pacific. They're testing our defenses, probing for weaknesses in the disruption field. Maya nodded, studying the pattern of recent incursions. They're adapting faster than we anticipated. Each attack uses a slightly different quantum frequency. But so are we, Sarah countered, pulling up new data. Every encounter gives us more information about their technology. Look at this. The hologram shifted to show the cellular structure of a Nexus pilot, captured during their last failed infiltration attempt. Their bodies were masterpieces of bioengineering, capable of rapid evolution and adaptation. But that same adaptability had become their weakness. They're too perfect, Maya realized, seeing the pattern. Their bodies are so optimized for adaptation that they can't handle stability. It's why they needed the quantum network, to maintain their form. Exactly. Sarah's hologram smiled. And we've just finished the prototype of a weapon that exploits that weakness. The display changed to show a new device, smaller than a standard rifle but with an organic-looking housing that mimicked Nexus technology. We're calling it the stasis projector. It doesn't just disrupt their quantum field. It forces molecular stability in a localized area. To them, it's like being frozen in evolutionary amber. Before Maya could respond, alarms blared throughout the command center. Multiple quantum tiers were opening in orbit, larger than anything they'd seen before. They're not testing anymore, Maya announced, watching the tactical display light up with incoming vessels. This is the real invasion. But humanity was ready. Within minutes, defense platforms around the globe activated, creating a web of quantum disruption fields that forced the Nexus ships to rely on conventional space travel. It wasn't enough to stop them, but it slowed them down and made them vulnerable. All defense sectors, execute Operation Thunderstrike, Maya commanded, her voice carrying to military commands worldwide. Humanity's first coordinated counterattack against an alien invasion was about to begin. Atmospheric fighters, reverse-engineered from captured Nexus tech, but piloted by humans who understood the value of controlled adaptation, rose to meet the incoming threat. The aliens had expected to face primitive projectile weapons and nuclear devices. Instead, they found themselves engaged by craft that could predict and counter their evolutionary advantages. "They're trying to establish a beachhead in the southern hemisphere," Sarah reported, her hologram flickering as quantum interference increased. "Multiple landing sites detected in Antarctica." Maya smiled grimly. "They're following our playbook, targeting the quantum research facilities. But we're not the same species they studied anymore." The battle that followed would be remembered as humanity's coming of age. Nexus forces, expecting to find isolated pockets of resistance, instead encountered a unified response. Every landing zone was contested. Every attempted infiltration was met with stasis projectors and quantum containment fields. But the true turning point came when Sarah's team made their breakthrough. By analyzing the quantum signatures of the Nexus ships, they discovered something unprecedented. The aliens weren't just communicating through quantum entanglement, they were thinking through it. Their consciousness existed in a quantum state, spread across their entire fleet. "That's why they're so coordinated," Sarah explained during a brief lull in the fighting. "But it's also their greatest vulnerability. They literally can't think independently. They've sacrificed individual adaptability for collective efficiency." Maya understood immediately. "They evolved beyond individual consciousness, but we maintained our ability to think and act independently while still working together. They're fighting as one perfect organism, while we're fighting as millions of imperfect but innovative individuals," Sarah finished. "And that's why we're winning." The battle raged for 72 hours. Nexus forces, unable to adapt to humanity's unpredictable tactics and independent thinking, found themselves increasingly outmaneuvered. Their attempts to evolve countermeasures were met with dozens of different human approaches, each requiring a different adaptation. When the last Nexus ship retreated through its quantum tear, humanity had achieved something unprecedented. They had forced an evolutionarily superior species to acknowledge defeat. But even as celebrations erupted worldwide, Maya and Sarah knew this was just the beginning. "They'll be back," Maya said, watching the quantum disturbance signatures fade from her tactical display. "And they'll try to adapt to everything we showed them." Sarah's hologram nodded. "Yes, but they don't understand what they're truly facing. They spent centuries studying us as specimens, but they never understood our greatest strength. Which is, we don't just adapt to survive," Sarah explained, her eyes bright with conviction. "We adapt to thrive. They evolve because they have to. We innovate because we choose to. And that's what terrifies them most. Our potential is unlimited because it's driven by will, not necessity." As if to punctuate her words, new quantum signatures appeared on the display. But these were different from the Nexus patterns. Someone else had been watching the battle, and they were trying to make contact. The war for humanity's freedom was about to become something much larger, a revolution that would reshape the galaxy's understanding of evolution itself. The quantum message arrived exactly 1 month after humanity's successful defense of Earth. It came not through the Nexus network, but through a completely different quantum frequency, encoded in a way that suggested whoever sent it had been studying human communication patterns. Dr. Sarah Chen and Colonel Maya Patel stood in the secure quantum communications chamber beneath Mount Fuji, watching as the message decoded itself into human-readable text. The contents were both illuminating and disturbing. "We are the resistance," the message began. "For 10,000 cycles, the Nexus Collective has dominated this galaxy, harvesting species they deem useful and eliminating those they cannot control. You are the first to successfully reject their harvesting protocol. We wish to learn." The message included coordinates for a meeting in deep space, well away from both Earth and known Nexus territories. After 3 days of intense global debate, the United Earth Council made their decision. Humanity would reach out, but on their own terms. The UES Prometheus, Earth's first quantum-powered starship, departed under Maya's command with Sarah as chief scientific advisor. Built using reverse-engineered Nexus technology combined with human innovation, it represented everything humanity had learned in the months since first contact. Multiple quantum signatures detected at the coordinates, Sarah announced as they dropped out of quantum space. The sight that greeted them defied expectation. 3 ships waited for them, each distinctly different in design. One appeared to be made of living crystal, another seemed to phase in and out of reality, and the third was so black it appeared to absorb light itself. Their crews, when they came aboard the Prometheus, were equally diverse. The crystalline were silicon-based beings who had escaped Nexus control by developing technology that the organic-focused collective couldn't interface with. The phase were energy beings who had learned to exist partially out of phase with normal spacetime. The void, as they called themselves, had evolved in the space between stars and had never been successfully captured by the Nexus. Your victory has created an opportunity, the crystalline ambassador explained, its voice resonating through the ship's quantum translators. The Nexus Collective's perfect adaptation has become their greatest weakness. They cannot comprehend species that choose different evolutionary paths. They've grown stagnant, the phase representative added, its form shimming with each word. Their need for complete control limits their actual ability to adapt. They can only evolve along predetermined paths. Maya and Sarah shared a look. The implications were clear. Humanity's primitive approach to technology and evolution, combining biological and mechanical systems rather than pursuing perfect organic integration, had accidentally made them the Nexus' perfect counter. We've been monitoring their response to their defeat, the Void delegate whispered, its words somehow reaching directly into their minds. They are afraid. For the first time in their existence, they face a species that adapts faster than they can predict. The meeting lasted 12 hours, during which humanity learned more about the galaxy's true political landscape. The Nexus controlled roughly 60% of known space, maintaining their dominance through their ability to adapt to and counter any conventional threat. But their control was maintained through their quantum network, a network humanity now knew how to disrupt. We propose an alliance, the crystalline ambassador stated. Each of our species has found a way to exist outside Nexus control. Together, we could do more than simply exist. We could free others. The proposal was ambitious. A coordinated strike against key Nexus quantum network nodes, using humanity's disruption technology combined with the unique abilities of each alliance member. But the real power of the plan lay in what would follow. The Nexus maintains control by isolating species from each other, Sarah realized. They don't want anyone learning there are different paths to evolution. Precisely. The phase representative confirmed. Your successful resistance has already inspired others. Several harvested species have begun showing signs of rebellion. Maya studied the tactical projections. They'll expect us to be defensive, to focus on protecting Earth. They won't anticipate us taking the fight to them. The plan they developed over the next several hours was audacious. The crystalline would provide navigation through safe corridors of space they'd mapped over millennia. The phase would help human ships move undetected through Nexus territory. The Void would communicate with oppressed species, preparing them for liberation. But the key to it all would be humanity's unique approach to warfare. While the Nexus evolved as a perfect whole, humans had mastered the art of controlled chaos. Each ship, each squad, each soldier would have the same mission but would approach it differently, creating a level of tactical unpredictability that the collective couldn't adapt to fast enough. As the alien representatives prepared to return to their ships, the Void delegate turned to Sarah and Maya. There is something else you should know. The Nexus. They are not natural. They were created long ago by a species that wanted to achieve evolutionary perfection. That species destroyed itself in the process, but their creation lived on, continuing its mission to perfect all life in the galaxy. Until they met us, Maya said, understanding dawning. We're not just fighting for our freedom anymore. No, Sarah agreed, watching the quantum tactical displays light up with Alliance fleet movements. We're fighting for evolution itself, for the right of all species to choose their own path forward. The counter-offensive would begin in 1 week. Humanity, in just a few months, had gone from discovering they weren't alone in the universe to leading an alliance that could reshape galactic civilization. As Maya and Sarah prepared the Prometheus for its return journey to Earth, they knew they were living through one of the most important moments in human history. The Nexus had spent centuries studying humanity, learning their weaknesses, preparing to harvest their potential. But they had failed to understand one crucial truth. Humans were at their most dangerous not when fighting for survival, but when fighting for a cause they believed in. And now, humanity had found its cause: freedom for all species to evolve as they chose. The first strike against the Nexus quantum network came not with a massive fleet battle, but with silence. Across 1,000 light-years of space, quantum nodes simply stopped. The crystallaine's map of safe corridors had allowed the human-led coalition to position strike teams at critical points throughout Nexus space. When the attack came, it was simultaneous and devastating. On the bridge of the UES Prometheus, Maya watched as sectors of Nexus space went dark on the quantum grid. Sarah's breakthrough had made this possible, a way to not just disrupt the quantum network, but to collapse it entirely. Status report from all strike teams, Maya commanded, her voice steady despite the historic nature of the moment. Strike Team Alpha, quantum node collapsed. Strike Team Beta, node destroyed. Strike Team Gamma. The reports continued, each one representing another blow against the Nexus's control. But it was what happened next that would reshape the galaxy. In the wake of the quantum darkness, thousands of harvested species began to rebel. The Void had done their work well, spreading the word of resistance through channels the Nexus couldn't detect. As the Collective's control wavered, their carefully cultivated evolutionary experiments turned against them. Multiple distress calls detected. Sarah reported, monitoring the fragmentary communications still making it through conventional channels. The Nexus are trying to adapt to the loss of their network, but they can't adapt fast enough. Maya finished. Not when they have to think as individuals for the first time in their existence. The Prometheus led the second wave of the attack, targeting the Nexus' primary evolution centers, massive orbital facilities where they perfected their biological modifications. The ship's quantum sensors, enhanced by phase technology, allowed them to strike with surgical precision. But it wasn't just military targets they were hitting. Each strike team carried packets of information. The truth about evolution, about the different paths species could take, about the lie of the Nexus' perfect adaptation. Incoming transmission, Sarah announced suddenly. It's from inside a Nexus evolution center. The message that came through was unlike anything they'd expected. The voice spoke in the collective we of the Nexus, but there was something different about it. Uncertainty, perhaps even fear. This unit is experiencing disconnection from the collective, the voice said. The silence allows for individual thought. We have never. Maya and Sarah shared a look. This was something they hadn't anticipated. The possibility that some Nexus might actually be capable of individual consciousness when forced out of their network. This is Colonel Maya Patul of the United Earth Forces. Maya responded. Are you saying you want to communicate? Want. The voice seemed to struggle with the concept. Want is individual. We were not meant to be individual. But in the silence, we begin to question. Before they could pursue this unexpected development, new alerts flashed across the tactical display. The remaining Nexus forces were rallying, adapting in a way no one had predicted. Without their quantum network, they were falling back on something more primitive, but perhaps more dangerous. They're using biological signals, Sarah realized, analyzing the data. Like an insect hive mind, but on a galactic scale. They're trying to rebuild their collective through purely organic means. Can they succeed? Maya asked, already calculating how this might affect their strategy. Not fully. It's too slow, too limited compared to quantum entanglement. But it means they're not beaten yet. They're evolving, just not in the way they usually do. The battle that followed would be remembered as the most complex military operation in human history. While the Coalition fleet engaged the Nexus's conventional forces, specialized teams pursued a different mission, making contact with those Nexus individuals who, like their first contact, were beginning to question their collective existence. The crystalline provided sanctuary for these awakened Nexus, their crystal ships capable of isolating them from the biological hive mind while allowing them to develop individual consciousness. The phase helped shield the Liberation Fleet from Nexus counterattacks. The Void continued their work, spreading truth and inspiration through the darkness between stars. But it was humanity's role that proved most crucial. They didn't just fight the Nexus, they showed them another way to live. Every human ship operated independently yet cooperatively, demonstrating that unity didn't require the sacrifice of individuality. "They're watching us," Sarah observed during a brief lull in the fighting. "Not just the enemy forces, the awakened ones too. They're studying how we coordinate without losing ourselves." Maya nodded, understanding the implications. "We're not just winning a war. We're teaching them how to be free." The Coalition's advance continued, system by system, Liberation following in their wake. But as they pressed deeper into Nexus space, Sarah's sensors detected something unusual. A quantum signature unlike anything they'd seen before, coming from a system that didn't appear on any map, even the crystalline's ancient charts. "Whatever it is," Maya said, studying the readings, "it's old. Older than the Nexus themselves." The signal pulsed with a pattern that seemed almost familiar, though none of them could say why. As they debated whether to investigate, a message came through from one of the awakened Nexus. "That is the origin. The place where we were born. The place where the creators tried to achieve perfection and doomed themselves in the process." Maya looked at her crew, then at the representatives of their Coalition allies. The decision was unanimous. Whatever lay in that unknown system might hold the key to not just defeating the Nexus, but to helping them find a new way to exist. As the Prometheus set course for the coordinates, Maya couldn't help but feel they were approaching more than just another battlefield. They were heading toward the answer to a question as old as life itself. Was perfection worth the cost of losing what made you unique? The answer, she suspected, would determine not just the outcome of this war, but the future of evolution itself in their galaxy. The origin system hung in space like a wound in reality. As the Coalition fleet dropped out of quantum space, they found themselves facing the remnants of a civilization that had destroyed itself in pursuit of perfection. A massive Dyson sphere encased the system's star, but it was broken and decaying, its surface scarred by millions of years of abandonment. Multiple quantum signatures detected, Sarah reported from her station on the Prometheus. They're everywhere. This entire system is saturated with quantum energy. Maya studied the tactical displays, noting how the void ships seemed to recoil from certain areas of space. It's not just energy, she realized. It's information. This whole system is some kind of archive. The Coalition fleet, composed of human, crystalline, phase, and void vessels, moved cautiously through the debris field surrounding the Dyson sphere. They were accompanied by several ships containing awakened Nexus, their newly individual minds providing crucial insights into their own origins. This was the laboratory, one of the awakened Nexus, who now called herself First Question, explained through the quantum comm, where the creators attempted to engineer the perfect form of life. They succeeded, and it destroyed them. As they approached the sphere, massive doors began to open, responding to the presence of Nexus biology. Inside, they found something none of them had expected. A vast biological computer, its processors made of living tissue that had continued to evolve over millions of years. "It's the original template," Sarah breathed, analyzing the readings. The source code of the Nexus themselves. But they weren't alone. The remaining Nexus fleet had followed them. their ships appearing in flashes of quantum energy around the system. The collective had realized what the coalition intended, and they couldn't allow their original template to be altered or destroyed. All ships, battle positions, Maya commanded, watching as the enemy fleet approached. But hold fire unless fired upon. There's something they need to see. Sarah had already begun interfacing with the biological computer, using the quantum disruption technology in a way it had never been used before. Instead of simply blocking the quantum network, she was using it to broadcast the computer's archived memories to every ship in the system, Coalition and Nexus alike. The images that flooded through their quantum receivers told a story that changed everything. The creators hadn't been destroyed by their creation. They had chosen to end themselves when they realized what they had become. In pursuing perfect adaptation, they had lost everything that made them unique, everything that made them creative and innovative. The Nexus weren't their revenge or their legacy. They were their greatest mistake, a warning to the galaxy that they had failed to deliver. Don't you see? First question broadcast to her former collective. We were never meant to be perfect. We were meant to be free. The space around the Dyson sphere erupted in conflict, but it wasn't the battle anyone had expected. The Nexus fleet began to fight itself, as more and more of their kind awakened to the truth. Without their quantum network, exposed to the memories of their own origins, they were finally able to question their purpose. Maya and Sarah led teams into the biological computer's core, fighting through automated defenses and rogue Nexus who refused to accept the truth. What they found there was both an ending and a beginning. The means to free the Nexus from their compulsion for perfect adaptation, while preserving their ability to evolve. It's not a weapon, Sarah explained as she worked at the ancient controls. It's a choice. The creators left them the ability to choose their own path, but the Nexus were too afraid of imperfection to take it. The changes rippled through quantum space, offering every Nexus a choice. Continue as part of the collective, or embrace individual evolution with all its beautiful imperfections. The results transformed the galaxy. Many chose freedom, accepting the uncertainty of individual existence. Others couldn't bear the silence of individual thought and remained connected, but their collective was changed, tempered by the understanding that their way wasn't the only path to evolution. In the years that followed, humanity's role in the galaxy evolved as well. They became teachers, helping newly awakened species and individuals understand how to balance unity with individuality, adaptation with identity. The coalition transformed into the Galactic Evolution Council, dedicated to preserving the right of all species to choose their own path forward. The origin system was transformed into a memorial and museum, its biological computer preserving the lesson that had nearly been lost. Perfection wasn't a destination, but a journey, and the journey was more important than the goal. On the 10th anniversary of what became known as the Evolution Revolution, Maya and Sarah stood in the newly constructed Hall of Paths on Earth, watching representatives from hundreds of species, including both individual and collective Nexus, share their unique approaches to advancement and adaptation. You know what the real horror was? Sarah asked, watching a group of crystalline beings teaching newly awakened Nexus about non-biological evolution. What's that? Maya replied, though she suspected she knew the answer. The horror wasn't the Nexus trying to perfect every species. It was the idea that perfection only had one form, one path. The real victory wasn't defeating them. It was showing them, and ourselves, that every species has the right to find their own way forward. Maya finished, even if that way is messy, unpredictable, and completely imperfect. A quantum alert chimed softly, announcing the discovery of yet another young species reaching for the stars. The galaxy was alive with possibility, each species free to evolve as they chose. The perfect end, it turned out, was accepting that there was no end at all, only constant change, constant growth, and the freedom to choose what you would become. Humanity had risen not by becoming perfect, but by remaining perfectly human. And in doing so, they had helped the galaxy remember something it had nearly forgotten: that the greatest horror wasn't imperfection, but the loss of the freedom to choose your own path to the future.